Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Ghost Show. That, of course, the theme song from my favorite installment, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Funk. Wow, here we are again with another Ghost Show podcast. First of all, as always, want to thank you all for tuning in and thank all you wonderful, wonderful backers who gave us something to talk about, and that is Volume 2 in the Everyone's Gone to the Movie series, Subversive Science Fiction. Thank you very much. If you haven't seen our latest updates, some good news there. The book is progressing well. The manuscripts are looking good. They're working their way through the editing process, and we're taking away all of the accidentally mistyped words and everything. So yeah, so it will be it's looking good. It's looking readable. But if you missed this week's big news, due to some Ghost Show employee forgetting that we had budgeted money for another author until after the campaign ended. It finally hit me. Wow, I have the money to hire somebody else. And if you haven't heard the nigh unbelievable story, but less than 24 hours later, I got cold contacted by literally one of my all-time favorite authors, a gentleman named Mike Weatherford, whose book Cult Vegas is in the top 10 best books I've ever read in my life. And just to hear from him was quite a thrill. And in the middle of our conversation, I worked up all of my courage. And using my usual Don Knotts elan, I said, "Oh, do you write a book for me? It's okay if you don't." And long story short, that spot that I nearly forgot was there is now going to one of my literary heroes. Mike Weatherford will be joining us for the book. That will make us a nice even 40 essays. And Mike's going to be discussing Conquest of the Planet of the Apes. And if you think you know apes, Mike not only has a very different take on the movie, we're also going to discuss the rarely seen alternate cut of the movie, where you have to be deep into Apes lore to even know this thing exists. But if you've heard rumors about the version of Conquest with the downbeat ending and the ramped up violence and gore, well, we've seen it. We're going to talk about it. But tonight, we're going to be talking about whatever these fine gentlemen want us to do, because this is the first of our super backer podcasts. And joining us for tonight, I'm just going to go around here. First of all is Bill Bodden, contributor to both volumes of Everyone's Gone to the Movies. Bill, you want to talk a little bit about yourself for the folks that may be new here?
Sure. And now I won't be able to remember anything to plug, but I'm Bill Bodden. I wrote an essay about the film Congo for the horror version, and my essay was about Brazil for the science fiction version. And also, as one of the backer goals, I'm working on an essay about the adventures of Buckaroo Banzai across the eighth dimension.
Oh my gosh!
Additionally, for the sci-fi volume, I've got a couple of horror short stories coming out from a series called Wiley Writers Presents. Those are up on Amazon. So yeah, that's what I'm up to.
Wow. Okay, so we're talking about Big in Trouble in Little China, and we name dropped Buckaroo Banzai. I think every '80s kid just paused for a moment. They felt a twinge somewhere. May not exactly know where, why, or how, but yes,
they felt a disturbance in the force.
Yes. Yes. And next to Bill on the grid is Sean Vieira, one of our super backers. Sean, you want to tell the folks tell the folks about yourself?
Hi, so I'm Sean. I'm a IT manager up here in Canada. Yes, I am a super backer on Kickstarter. I have a problem, but it is a nice problem to have when I can help gentlemen such as these produce such fine works. I'd like to thank Bill for working on my personal choice, which was Buckaroo Banzai, which is kind of appropriate considering the director of that movie was the primary writer of Big Trouble in Little China tonight.
Yeah, wow.
W.D. Richter, yeah.
Yes. who oddly enough, his other credit is scripting the 78 Philip Kaufman remake of Invasion of the Body Snatchers, which is about as cold and depressing a film as you're ever going to see. He must have built up a lot of sad and just I've got to work this out of my system here. Yeah. But I'm ahead of myself here. I'm still introducing people. And yes, the man with the perfect wallpaper, the godfather of the Banff podcasting family, Mike Lafferty. Mike, welcome.
Always a pleasure, Chris. I'm just here for the tacos, but I appreciate you letting me get on the air and everything.
Mike is the head of Mike. Not only provides a great platform for creators like us, he's incredibly supportive, does everything behind the scenes to make mine and many other Kickstarters happen, and puts out fabulous stuff through Fainting Goat Games. And again, perfect wallpaper.
Thank you, sir. I also do a great Captain and Tennille impression, and I'm available for weddings and bar mitzvahs in the Northern Colorado area. So thanks a lot. Happy to be here.
I want to hear you do Tennille.
I got a little puppet for Tennille. I don't know why. Sorry, it's the rum. Forgive me. Please, let's talk to Mr. Charles.
Yes, and joining us tonight is literally the guy who made this happen. And I raise my hidden beverage to Charles.
Yes.
Charles, tell the folks a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm a indie publisher who's very wacky. Take a look at this, imbuing with magic.
Ooh. Oh,
nice.
See? So that's one of the crazy things that I'm doing is developing dice.
Ooh.
So that's going to be a project. But I primarily published comic books, and when the pandemic happened, it was the pandemic. Your taxpayer money ended up helping me to make this. Oh, wait, let me get a better light on this.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah, so it basically helped Native American children not be afraid of getting the COVID swab.
Oh, wow.
And also did this as well. Stuff about Native culture and
Oh, wow.
Native kids, things like that. So, and I got a bunch of other stuff I could easily show off and stuff like, here's this project, but I do a lot of volunteer work here and there. There's a company I discovered called M Hub in Chicago, where they can assist you from start to finish on full prototype fabrication. So I've discovered they have a CNC machine, and my madness has gone to full tilt.
Oh, gosh.
What is a CNC machine?
A CNC machine is a three-dimensional. Is a machine that has a drill. Move X, Y, back and forth, and if you have a five-dimensional CNC machine, the base can also move. So you could literally, with this drill, have a block of metal or wood or something, and then have it drilled to an incredible shape as long as you have a proper step file. And so you could literally have engine parts made, airplane parts made, or amazing dice or figures or different prototypes. They have injection molding. So it's like, wait a second, I can make toys? Oh my gosh. And I know we're slightly off subject, but you kind of look at Big Trouble in Little China, and in some ways we have Big Trouble with Big China. But one thing after doing some serious research was I went to the Godzilla convention. Yeah, hold on. Oh, rats that fell out of sight. Wah. I'll have to get that later. But to shift back, because I could bounce around quickly because I want to get this device. But I found out that tooling and dyeing for a toy in China and shipping it here, there's only a 3% difference than doing it here. So it's like, why bother with the 3%? Just do it in our backyard.
Yeah.
But Big Trouble,
You'll save that on shipping time alone.
right? But to Big Trouble in Little China, the first time I saw it was not in the theaters, but on a cheat cable box when I was living in Omaha, Nebraska. And I had 3 roommates. It was one of those, like, we're all poor, let's all pitch in together and we have a giant house. And when the other 2 went away to work, when I wasn't finding work, I would just leave Big Trouble in Little China on loop, and I looped it for days. Over and over again. And it was just one of the greatest joys I ever had in the early 80s when there was like nothing else to do, no internet per se, except the type internet, early BBSs, but it just brought such joy. And if you guys disagree or agree, it really feels like one of the best modern D&D games one can ever play.
I would love to
I
play
don't disagree. I do not
campaign
disagree.
like that. Yeah, for a one shot. Yeah,
That would be a lot of fun.
Just be in terms of being pure fun, I mean, and really, I think that's always your best kind of gaming. As much as I appreciate the occasional super pressing, we all die, and
apparently Charles making fun of the old days of the internet.
There we go.
Yeah, he's back. Okay.
Well, I didn't want you to see my wearing of pants when I got up, just in case.
We appreciate it.
Fair enough.
What you got?
Godzilla toy that I was talking about. So, I just think it's cool. So it's a giant monster that's a vampire. Like, let's eat everything. We're monsters.
Your cat's loving this.
Right. Right. Just imagine this thing being the size of a building.
Yes. All righty. Okay. All right. Okay. Well, very, very cool. All right. Sean, how did you first see Big Trouble?
I first saw Big Trouble when a guy in my gaming group loaned it to me, telling me I had to watch this movie. And so I did. And I was blown away from it. And I think one of the things I came back to him afterwards, and the rest of the guys in the gaming group, because we then ended up watching it all together, because it came in one of those things where, because everybody's got to watch this movie, was at the time, one of the big things that I left with, I said, this is, somebody did a gaming session and they filmed the events. Because if you look at it, it's like a player, central character, who he has a lousy rolls, but every so often he just hits critical successes. All the way through, he's just fumbling. The big fight starts, he rolls lousy, shoots the ceiling, and concrete knocks him down. Things happen, but every so often he just gets that amazing success, like when he's in the wheelchair and it's rolling back, or his big final sequence with Lopan. Yes, that was, he fumbles it, but then somehow miraculously, and as I said, this is basically like a gaming session. We've all, and to my friends, we said, yeah, we've been there. We've done this. This is kind of what happens is, and then years later, I sort of also expanded upon one of the things there that I really enjoyed about it is when you realize the fact that Jack Burton isn't necessarily the hero. He's the sidekick. He is this Western guy that's wandered into a Hong Kong martial arts movie, and he is just, going along with the flow. He's almost like it's Rosenkrantz and Guildenstern are dead, that's been intersectioned with Hamlet. So you're getting not a complete view, but it's almost like something like that, as I realized years later, because he's not really the protagonist, but he gets lucky.
Yeah. And a great audience entree character for all of that, I think. All right, Bill, you want to talk to us about how you found the movie? And
well, I saw at the time it came out, I was managing a movie theater across town, and we traded passes for movie staff. So I called them up and asked for a pass for me to get in to see it. And it was the perfect movie to see because I had a really terrible job review like just before that happened.
Well,
So I was really depressed, went to see the movie, felt tons better afterwards. But yeah, it was, I saw it live the first time it was out, and it was gone within a week or two. I didn't have a chance to go see it again. It was in and out pretty quickly.
yeah, it was same in my town. It was just, and looking back, you kind of wonder how it could have gone any other way, because it's really hard to explain what people are getting into unless they just sit down and watch it. And that has to be like the best kind of film. But that's all. That's anything that people don't know every single frame in advance, pretty much, you're gonna have a hard time getting them in the theaters for that. So
well, and they talk all the time about the elevator pitch. This is a movie that's nearly impossible to give a short elevator pitch for.
Oh yeah,
much like Sean, much like Buckaroo Banzai, you can't sum it up in one sentence.
yes,
It's next to impossible.
We should all try to elevator pitch it towards the end of the show to see what we can come up with.
I know that John Carpenter did come up with an elevator pitch that involved a phrase with a lot of hyphens in it. So, but that's about as close as I've seen to something accurate and really descriptive.
Yeah, and he was probably selling that to an executive that welcomed into his office, like, so you done another Halloween, huh? Well, not quite.
Not exactly.
Well, Mike, how did you find the film? How did you get into it?
Cable. I actually saw it at my grandparents' house one summer when there's nothing else to do. Yeah, I think I saw a very heavily edited version on USA Network. Sandwiched between reruns of Beastmaster, probably. So, or maybe TBS. So, yeah, I don't know if I've actually seen the wholly unedited theatrical release. Yeah, I just thought it was a lot of fun. If I recall correctly, when it was released, it was kind of up against some stiff opposition that year. So I'm not surprised. It kind of, it seems like it's
Aliens 2, for example.
Yeah, it's everybody was seeing Aliens that summer. I don't know how you compete with that.
Yeah.
So I am surprised there hasn't ever been a remake, but apparently Carpenter is adamant that he won't ever let them do that, at least while he's alive. So
apparently they're attempting to do
really
a remake with The Rock, but they have had to come out and say, no, not a remake, sequel-ish, inspiration, because Carpenter and every one of his fans get on their case immediately.
So it's set in the same universe as Big Trouble in Little China? Okay. Hard to say until it comes out. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I really enjoyed Dwayne Johnson's presence on screen, but he always seems to be in very heavily managed kind of corporate entertainment extravaganzas. So it's hard to imagine him being in something as sort of seat of your pants and indie feeling as this movie. But maybe he'll prove me wrong.
He got outside of his usual stuff on 2 films, and they both bombed. So I think we will not be seeing many artistic risks from him from here on out.
Well, he was in Escape from Witch Mountain, but if you didn't squint, you wouldn't realize it was him.
Yeah. I kept looking for Eddie Albert, Christopher Lee, and Betty Davis. So.
But he was in that Disney musical, and it went pretty well. So. And then he played a Highlander in that Jungle Cruise movie, and it worked out okay. So
Well, I was thinking more of his weirder stuff like Southland Tales, or
are you allowed to see that movie? I thought it was under guard somewhere.
I recommend it. And I was trying to think of the Elmore Leonard adaptation, where he's like the openly gay bodyguard hitman.
Oh, Get Shorty or Get Shorty too.
Yes. Which I love the role, but that's a hard sell to his core audience. But okay, pulling us back on track here. All righty. Okay. So we're talking about a film that, okay, got to do the math here, is 36 years old.
Wow.
That's not possible.
Okay.
This came out a few years ago, right? I don't know what you're
Alrighty.
talking about there.
Okay.
Ultimate Universe time ago.
Yeah. Now, given how many films you forget 36 minutes after you see them, Charles, why are we still talking about why has this film lasted?
Because there's so many elements of fun, it stays with you permanently. Either horrible traumatic experiences stay with you, or some of the most incredible greatest joys. Like, for example, if you were a father and you have your children, you got to see them grow up. Like, I have a certified IRS tax agent and a kinesiologist for children. You feel very proud of that, and that stays in your memory. Big Trouble in Little China, all the crazy stuff like egg blowing up little monsters, so you'll just, something like "You'll Disturb Us No More," and then Jack's character freaking out over it is to all these Chinese characters that they're like, "Oh, this is like normal stuff. You don't know it, you outsider." And then when they called the one reporter Mao Yin, it's trouble. I thought that was great. And then the excitement of green eyes like creamy jade. And the excitement over green eyes. I'm wondering how many green eyes fetishes that this movie caused. But there's so many iconic moments that just ticked here and there that I remember. Or the Beyond, the Beholder with the multi-eyed thing. That's why I feel like it was a D&D game. And as Sean was saying, what game system do you think they were? GURPS, D&D, Gamma World, which is kind of like D&D. What is your opinion on that? I mean, I'm just curious too, like the joyful thrill that went inside of it.
I'll give a shout out to my good friend Hal Mangold's one of his publishing ventures, the new edition of Feng Shui.
Ooh.
Available through Atomic Overmind Press, and you owe me, Hal. All right, Sean, why do you think the film has endured? What do you think keeps bringing back people back to this?
Well, it's have you paid your dues, Jack? Yes, sir. The check is in the mail. I mean, I remember so much of this movie, and I thought, oh, great excuse. I'll watch it again, for it, because it's as I say, there are a couple of movies out there that I know will play occasionally, and I will catch them. And I got to watch them, even though I own them. I have them on streaming. I've got them physically. I own them digitally. I will still watch them. Blazing Saddles, Buckaroo, Big Trouble in Little China. If I see it, my wife goes, but we own. I go, yeah, no, I got to watch it. And it's just
Sean, I think we were separated at birth.
Yeah.
Frankly.
There's just so much fun, especially in this movie. Those lines and everything. It is, the character Jack is just this overconfident buffoon, and just can't take your eyes off of him. I think, honestly, it's one of the performances that makes me really appreciate Kurt Russell, because I remember him back from his teen days doing the Disney movies, and it was really like, this is the same guy.
Interesting side story. So he kind of disappeared from Hollywood after the Disney years, and he came back later. You know what he was doing? He was playing minor league baseball. He was a professional baseball player. His dad actually owned a minor league team out in California, and I can't remember the name of the team now, but there's a documentary about it that you can look up. And he was on the Tonight Show years ago, promoting something. I think it was promoting the Elvis Presley biopic that he was in. And he was telling stories about his days in minor league baseball, some of which are pretty off color, but yeah, I mean, he's apparently a fairly talented athlete too.
My favorite bit of Kurt Russell trivia for a guy who broke out of the Disney kid stuff he was doing by doing that Elvis TV movie with John Carpenter. Thanks to the old Turner Classic Movies, which used to talk about movies and let great stars talk about the movies. And between the movies, they did a piece with Kurt Russell, and Kurt Russell was reflecting on his big screen debut, walking on camera in It Happened at the World's Fair and kicking Elvis Presley in the shin.
Elvis knows what he did. He think he had that coming.
That's awesome.
Can I bounce something off you guys? See
Sure.
if this sounds legit. I heard from somebody, and I forget where, that Kurt Russell's approach to this role was just to do kind of a parody of every John Wayne role. And at first I was like, well, that's crazy. And then I watched it again. I was like, I can almost see that.
I've heard that too.
Yeah.
I think I read an interview where he talked about that. Yeah. I think that's
I saw it after the fact. I think when I first saw it, my first instinct was, we've just seen John Carpenter's Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Mm.
So I don't know. Maybe he and Harrison were kind of tweaking the same archetype. Right?
Well,
go ahead, John. Sorry.
I was going to say, I've heard also the fact that he, and one of the things that led me into the fact that he's not the main hero of it is the fact, in his own words, is that his approach also was that, Jack is the hero, but he's not the hero. Is honestly how he was approaching it, and he's a hot air screw up.
Yeah, I've heard it suggested that the whole movie, the same way you can take the original Star Wars as a veiled critique of American foreign policy in the 60s, you can also interpret this movie as a veiled critique of American adventurism throughout the 50s, 60s, and 70s. Kind of the American blunders into situations he doesn't understand, but succeeds through blind luck and gumption. Again, I don't know if that's valid. I mean, it's interesting.
And being a man.
I'm sorry?
And being a man.
And being a man, a manly man.
Well, the director's commentary, which is basically just a conversation between Carpenter and Kirk, which almost has very little to do with the movie, but it's an interesting conversation between two clearly old and dear friends, just talking the stuff. One of the few times they do delve into the movie is more of one of the interesting things when they sort of there was a bit of controversy where the Asian community did do some protesting for the movie, thinking, again, Asian stereotypes and stuff like that. And apparently Carpenter had some concerns and did go talk to the Asian actors, and National Treasure James Hahn, apparently told him basically, no, you just, it's the Hong Kong action movie flicks that you're homaging. He said, we get it. It's this, the with all the spiritual things like that. He said, no, we all get it. And so does everybody that's working. And it's great because almost all the cast, except for two people, really were Asian. So they never had a problem with it.
Yeah. There was my local Alamo Draft House has a tradition. They every Halloween they show 4 horror movies in a row with the warning that they will not tell you what the films are until immediately before they run them. And the last time we were able to do a full one before COVID sort of limited that sort of thing is they found this film that they could only get it in like a dubbed Laserdisc version. So it looked terrible, but it was perfect. Called Centipede Horror. And it ends in a battle between two of your typical Hong Kong sorcerers. One animates a killer chicken and sends it after the other one. The other one hits it with a fireball, and it literally turns into one of those roast chickens you get at the supermarket checkout line when you really don't feel like cooking, which, of course, they then animate and have attack him. And then I started thinking, like, Hong Kong cinema is a gift to the world.
Okay, in your hometown when you were kids, was it Kung Fu Sunday or Kung Fu Saturday?
It was when we finally got cable. USA Network used to take, I think, Sunday afternoons and do them, and that was my first regular exposure to it.
Okay, for me, this was when I was in late grade school, early high school. My late brother and I used to watch on channel 44 at the time. They had all these different badly dubbed, Chinese karate films and kung fu, mystic films. And I'm over at my father's house, and he pops in to see what we're doing. And this man slaughters a family and does all this horrible, evil stuff. And the lady just yelled out, "You are not a very nice man." And my father just started laughing his head off. And from that day on, he was hooked to Kung Fu Sunday as well.
We didn't have that, but fortunately, up here, Toronto is a very multicultural city, and it had a cable outlet channel that was called the Multicultural Station that would broadcast throughout most of Ontario. And Saturday nights was the Hong Kong Asian cinema, which meant more than not, at least you got one, if possibly two, Hong Kong martial arts movies.
Oh wow!
That's awesome.
Wow. Now I feel like pouring one out for the El Rey channel and the Saturday night El Santo double feature. God, channels where you could just find weird movie marathons like that. Oh yeah. All right. Well,
for 40 years, I remembered this kung fu movie I saw on Channel 4 in Indianapolis, Indiana. There was this old drunken monk riding into town on a steamwork horse. And there was like, drink for me, pour some into the horse's gas tank, drink for me, pour some in the horse's gas tank, waving at vendors as he walked into town, and his squire is walking beside him, just, horribly embarrassed. And it was such a striking scene, and I just never found out what the movie was, and I've been waiting for most of my life to come across it again somehow. So if anyone knows, hit me up.
All righty. Yeah. Please drop us something in the comments.
And that's my job for this podcast, is to do random tangents that takes Chris completely off track. Please forgive me, but I'm doing the best I can. Go ahead, back to you, Chris.
You're doing a fine job, Mike.
Yeah.
Going back to when you're talking about that sorcerer's battle, in Big Trouble in Little China, how many people didn't look? It looked like James Hong's character, Lopan, is playing a video game with his hands.
Oh.
He mimics
Rock'em
exactly.
Sock'em Robots.
Yes.
I mean, I'm like going, how many years did it take me to realize that? It's like I'm going.
Hopefully less years than it took me to catch the scene in Blazing Saddles where he offers him a Laurel and hearty handshake. I swear I think it was like the late 90s before I finally went, oh yeah, okay. Yes. All right.
That's funny. One thing that I really liked about Big Trouble in Little China was how they did have some of the over-the-top stuff that you do see in some of the older Asian cinema. I remember this one called Holy Sword, where all I remember is this one enemy running across the water to attack this other guy, got some type of giant sword or used some huge item as a sword. And this other guy kicks down a Ferris wheel and uses it as a shield to block the sword, which is just like, I was just hooked. I just thought it was the greatest thing I'd ever seen. And then you got a heroic trio with all that stuff going on too. Saving the baby and things like that. And Big Trouble in Little China just grabbed that over the top DC Comics feeling that if you say it works, it does. Marvel, it's like, well, we're all a bunch of scientists. Peter Parker's a scientist. Fantastic Four is a scientist. Professor X is a scientist. Scientist, or you're a magic user. And on the other side, you got all these billionaires who are like, okay, let's have some fun and build all this cool stuff around us. We're bored being billionaires. Or everything is magic. Or it just works because you say it does. It's like, yes, this imbued dice I have with 3,000 chromons of temporal energy, if I roll it correctly, can send us to an adventure on the nth dimension. It works. And that's what Big Trouble in Little China was it had all this stuff thrown together. It just works.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. All righty. Well, before we run out of time here, because we're ramping up close to 9 o'clock on what unfortunately for me is yet again a school night. But Charles, in addition to helping us out, is also doing his own cool stuff. And let me drop your website here into the chat. There you go. And hey, I finally learned how to do that. There you go. Okay.
If you could put on outerplanetpanic.com, I would be grateful.
I'm sorry. What was that?
Outer Planet. Oh wait. Outerplanetpanic.com.
All righty. Well, let's see here. While I struggle with spelling, maybe it's for the best that I'm going to school tomorrow. All righty. And let's see here. There we go.
Yay.
All righty. Okay. Well, then, please, sir, tell us about your game.
Well, Otter Planet Panic is a game where everybody works together to stab each other in the back. So basically, you get a sponsor, and the sponsor gives you money. You go off world to these different planets. This is like early alpha stage, and you're sent off world and you dig for stuff, and you see if you got the right items to try to build your ultimate device. Now, all of us, if we were all playing, would be trying to build an ultimate device. So let's say you got items I needed, Professor. I might try to make a deal to buy them off of you.
Okay.
But then the other three guys, Bill, Sean, and Mike, might say, well, we don't like that. So we're going to figure out how to counter negotiate or block the deal or figure something else. And there's this back and forth going until finally one of us builds the ultimate device and takes over the galaxy. Some people say it's like a cross between Catan, Monopoly, and Bingo, all rolled in one with a sci-fi setting. And we've done an homage style to Jack Kirby. Yeah. It's really fun. The characters are amazing. And I worked with a gentleman from Haiti who was the lead artist on it. The designer from the box is Native American, and he's actually blood related to the chief of Oshkosh, to Chief Oshkosh.
Oh, wow.
Wisconsin, and then there's myself, a few other people. So this is literally a multicultural project, which I'm very excited about.
Yeah.
It does teach commerce as well. I didn't realize it, but that's kind of neat. So it is educational. There's no violence. It's all negotiation, commerce, digging, and luck. So that's my quick pitch.
Yes, building a device that will slowly take over the world.
Yeah, like you might have a quantum cohesion drive where you can be everywhere at once. You can have a battle suit so powerful you could walk on a black hole and crush it with your fist. Right.
So I only have one question.
Yes, sir.
When you do the Kickstarter, are you going to be shipping to Canada?
Yes, I plan to ship worldwide. And what's interesting is
then I've saved it to notify me on launch.
Yeah. Just sign up on Outer Planet Panic. I'm still building the website. I haven't figured out WordPress, so we'll see. But I at least got it linked to Kickstarter so you could join there. And after I get a certain number of people, then I launch it. I do plan to print it in the States. And now that I've encountered MHub in Chicago, I'm now exploring making figures as well. Solid figures instead of the, you could have your meeple figures or solid figures, which I think is groovy. So that's where I'm at.
I'm sensing some awesome stretch goals there.
Oh yeah. Range from t-shirts, toys, now that I figured out, wow, I can actually make figures too. We'll see what happens. And the best part is, it could literally be done in our backyard instead of having to wait
a year
to get it done. I mean, imagine if it gets done in, 2 months or less, and then I could ship out.
Yeah.
You know, how much fun would that be? And then people just have to wait for the thing to come instead of like, oh no, the boat sank in a fiery balloon crash. Wow. Oh, gas is so high. It's people buy nuclear waste and make diamond batteries. You know, have power nuclear subs to go and get your buried treasure and deliver it to the fans. Like you've seen what happened with Peterson games, right?
No.
They lost a container, right?
Yeah. And they had some of their molds stolen.
Oh no!
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. You know, Peter. You know, these like Cthulhu War stuff.
Ooh.
Yeah.
You know, and there's some people hypothesizing that he makes new Kickstarters to pay for any loss of the old Kickstarters. You know, and you know,
that's a death spiral there.
right,
Yeah.
right.
Oof.
Yeah.
Are there as a tangent, are there Big Trouble in Little China action figures
Yes,
that exist?
yes.
Who
And
makes
I
them?
have some hidden away in my secret areas.
Okay.
Yes. No, they got cool T-shirts, you know, and the figure. Okay, out of like the dark gods of the weather, which were some of your favorite?
Oh, my favorite's got to be Thunder
Okay.
because he actually has lines.
Yes.
Everybody else. Although it's pretty hard to beat Lopan. I mean, he's not one of the weather incarnate people, but
Yeah.
Chris, could you share my screen, please?
Yes, and as soon as I drop into chat, there you go. There's the link. Here's the link where you can see the whole
Wow.
series. And there you go. There's a close up on one.
Those moccasins cracked me up so much. It's like he went to a Renaissance fair.
Wow.
Jack Burton seems like a Renaissance fair kind of guy.
I'm thinking those are not inexpensive action figures.
Let me see. That one is on eBay, and so it's not cheap. I won't check the price because it'll clearly kill him.
Oh, they're all on eBay now. So these came out a while ago.
Yeah.
There is someone on Etsy who is 3D printing Jack Burton action figures, and that's that's wacky Etsy pricing. So who knows?
Yeah.
Wow.
Jeez.
Actually, that is only $30, which
Really?
is high for an action figure, but less than I thought it would be. So
That's not bad. I mean, I've seen the ultra expensive, the ones where even the fingers are articulated. Ones that come out of Japan, and those are super. Those are like $200-300 a piece, and they're also pretty big. They're like a foot tall because they got to be to have that level of articulation in them.
There are dudes with disposable income in Japan.
You could drive
There's
into
dudes with disposable income up here too, because I've got a local store that brings that things in, and I'm always sort of so you sold it at that price?
Well, back in my day, Han and Chewie's knees didn't bend. We liked it.
That's all there was.
Yes.
Remember the early Mego toys and the early Star Trek toys, and then you'd buy like both of them, and then they'd encounter each other?
We lost our house in the Great Southwest Virginia flood of 1977, and as we were fleeing the house, I took all my comic books and jammed it inside my giant Starship Enterprise bridge, and that's what I fled the house with.
Wow.
That's a story. Wow.
And you were able to buy a new house by selling just one of your comics.
One day, Chris will finance his blockbuster movie from Selling That Memorabilia.
Oh my goodness!
Hey, Chris, if you want to share my screen again, this might.
Oh yes.
From Boom Studios. Apparently, this appeared as a cover on a Big Trouble in Little China licensed comic. So
Yeah.
I don't know what to say about that.
How can you not like Lo Pan? I mean, all the characters are amazing. So, as I mentioned before, Sean, what game system do you think Big Trouble in Little China is?
I was always confirmed. Well, it's just mostly because I've been running Call of Cthulhu for a while, figuring that it's just some keeper going, okay, we got to have something a little lighter, something maybe where everybody's got a chance of survival for it, and going, okay, we'll do that. I got this idea. I've watched this Asian some cinema, supernatural. We'll do this, and one player just going, you know what? I just want to play a trucker, maybe a Western guy. Go, okay, so we're going to build it around your character's truck getting stolen.
That's what I loved about it, is how simple and relatable it was, And then the kid, I mean, you think about it, the kidnapping was a very serious issue, and it still happens to this day. And that I found was a very interesting message there. But the way they went about it made it so cool in the airport, seeing the guys with the glasses, the sunglasses, the weapons coming out of nowhere, and Jack's bewilderment.
You know what the original pitch, like the original writers, the story for Big Trouble in Little China was? It was going to be a Western.
Yes.
Around the turn of the century, San Francisco, cowboy comes in to San Francisco, and his horse gets stolen. And then the hilarity begins. But, the studio basically said, West and martial arts, that's not going to mix.
Bean counters.
Yeah. And that's what led to the rights and rewrites.
Have you guys ever seen the Lo Pan style video?
Yes.
Yeah.
Years back? Yeah. You know what I'm talking about, Chris?
No, but you say that and it just immediately pops into my head, and it's like genius.
All right. If you on YouTube search for Lo Pan style, it's a Gangnam Style parody, but they get James Hong to show up in the video.
Okay, all right, that puts it over the top. The top.
It's only 5 minutes of your life, and it'll be well spent. But
oh gosh!
And if you do really enjoy it, they also at one point had a longer video with the background of them actually putting it together with all this, and how trying to convince the agent of James Hong to let him come out and do it. And it's like, apparently James Hong, once he got there, it's like, no, I'm staying longer. No, forget this. Yeah, I'm going to do all this stuff. I wanted.
Yeah, I mean, he's not just a cameo. He's in there kind of a bit. So it was, I was pleasantly surprised by it.
Have you ever watched Epic Rap Battle? Could you imagine Lo Pan versus Bruce Lee or something, or some other crazy character, just how over the top it could be?
All right, okay, somebody with a bigger budget than me, take that, run with it. We're giving that one away for free, folks, so feel free to run with that one.
Well, I'm very excited about your book, Professor.
Thank you.
It's so attractive looking from everything that you put into it, and then to discover that other book that you've done, it's like, okay, I'm gonna have to get that too.
Well, thank you.
And the fact that you made this opportunity for us to share in this with you and share a common love. And one thing I just really have enjoyed with these other gentlemen is this kind of bonding on a subject that, for all different reasons, it brought us happiness. And three of us had cable experiences. One actually had the actual movie experience. I mean, wow. And I used to work as an usher, so I relate to
Wow.
the different films. The Fine Arts Theater in Chicago years ago, when that used to be a thing, and then Sony brought it out, and then eventually those early movie days were so fun when you didn't have all this glut of let me lip sync a song and watch me on a phone, where you just went out, You blocked off this time. You had this experience that's dreamlike. And then with Big Trouble in Little China, you got Mao Yin, you got just all this just cacophony of every trope that made you happy when you watched all relatable films. I mean, I actually consider that the equivalent of the Spider-Man No Way Home that came out recently with all the magic and parallel stuff, but the general public weren't savvy enough to understand at the time. And if the internet existed as it did now, maybe that movie would have had a maddening, rushing success. And in my mind, it still is successstill.
It's one of those things, isn't it? That a lot of these very interesting movies, it shows you, and it's still true to today, that studios don't know how to sell movies. They really don't. I mean, you can see that in, again, Buckaroo Banzai, Princess Bride, and you hear the backstories. But I mean, the most recent example, John Carpenter, everybody I know that's actually seen the movie goes, it's a pretty good movie. It's just the marketing was awful. And it's surprising. It's how old is the movie industry, and they still suck at marketing.
So I'm looking at Box Office Mojo for Big Trouble in Little China. Domestic take was just over $11 million. International take was $577. That can't be right. That cannot be right.
There was one pissed off drive-in in Canada.
Yeah. Sadly, it doesn't list what their budget was, so I don't know, but I'm pretty sure it was. Brazil came out in a similar time frame, and that was 15 million. So I'm betting it was at least 15, maybe more. They had a lot more special effects than Brazil, so maybe 20.
Yeah, this came out against both Aliens and Top Gun.
Oh, God.
Ouch.
I try not to develop too much hate for these Top Gun movies, but it's like every time one comes out, there's some great film that will outlast it that gets overshadowed. Like I had such a tough time convincing people to go see Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Oh, yes.
When Maverick was just eating up screens all over the country. And again, no hate for Top Gun movies and people who like them. It's just they take up a lot of space.
I think the latest Top Gun is just a retelling of the first Star Wars movie.
That's another one of Hollywood's problems. They've been retelling the first Star Wars movie now for going on 50 years.
Ugh.
So Wikipedia says the budget for Big Trouble was between 19 and 25 mil.
Okay, yeah.
Wow.
The $577, that was apparently from a 2020 re-release in New Zealand.
Well, that's got to be what, 40 million in New Zealand money, right?
So how much are making video sales?
Oh, that's a good question. It's got to be tons.
Well, I'm convinced that also, but it showed on like HBO and the Canadian equivalent. I think it was called the Super Channel. I forget.
Yeah,
it's gone through some, but I mean, on repeat for like ever.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, just random story, just for Sean. I found a copy of a film that I have been looking for over 40 years. A really obscure Canadian sci-fi film called Dr. Frankenstein on Campus.
Oh, you told me about this one.
And the source of it was taped off of Canadian HBO, and the guy let the tape run long, and after the film ends, the rapturous announcer is I kid you not, hyping that they're going to have the first cable showing of Strange Brew. And he says it with a voice that makes you think like the schools are going to close up there, and
well, they kind of did.
They're going to put them on the money soon, All righty.
Strange Brew was a big deal when we discovered it in suburban Indiana. Everybody I knew watched that movie. It was like the version of the Blues Brothers for us.
Oh yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, if you can ever find, there is a white whale I have for a movie. It is actually a 1983 science fiction TV movie starring Ray Julia.
Raul Julia?
Yeah.
Oh.
And it's called Overdrawn at the Memory Bank. I think it was like a PBS.
Mystery Science Theater 3000 did that.
Yes, they did. I want a copy without them over it, because I mean, they've admittedly now said they're sorry to have, really besmirched it, in considering, it was a co-production. So it's got Canadian, it's basically Canadian television filming, things like that. But the story is very interesting, very good. I would just want a copy without them dispersing. If they had it, like, let me turn you guys off. I actually want to watch this movie because I remember it. And the reason why it is, I think, is one of the great science fiction movies is because after that, I had to go out and watch Casablanca, which I then watched, multiple times. So you cannot say it is necessarily that bad of a movie when it drives you to go, this movie, he's talking about, he's obsessed with, sounds great. I got to go watch it.
Oh, right. Well, we're down to our last few minutes here. So, sorry, go ahead, please finish up.
Well, I just wanted to share a crazy coincidence. Does anybody remember the movie Heavy Metal?
Oh, yeah. It almost made the book.
Well, I ended up doing a show in England, and I ended up being next to Chris Akaleos. And when my sales were weak, I was just helping sell the stuff. So I'd accept the money and just say, here, pull this out. And he's like, what are you doing? I said, I'm helping you sell because you're too slow. And he was so touched by that. He invited me to his house, had dinner. And as fate would have it, I ended up having an exclusive to print his Doctor Who prints. And I would send him overseas until he passed away just recently in December. But it's just amazing how weird coincidence can happen with movies that you love and people you meet and things like that. Like me getting to meet all four of you guys is just, to me, incredible. Sorry for the sidebar.
Yeah. Sean messaged me after the show. I know some guys who have a copy that fell off the back of a truck.
The Banff podcast does not encourage privacy. That's my disclaimer. Sorry, please continue.
Don't know where it came from, but okay. All right. Well, okay. So all right. So as we wrap up, so Bill, what can we look forward to coming out from you soon, other than 2 fabulous essays in subversive science fiction?
Short stories in the Wiley Writers Presents series of anthologies available on Amazon.com. That's my most recent project. I'm really excited about them. So
indeed,
check that out.
Looks very, very, very solid, and great collection of people on that.
And great. I don't know how I lucked into that, but I've got some fantastic names that I'm backing up. So.
All right. Yeah. All right, Mike, what's coming up this week? What's coming up for Fane and Goat, and what's coming up this week on the Banff family of podcasts?
I don't want to take up too much time, but tomorrow, noon Mountain Time, we are concluding our Transformers-esque lunchtime beat 'em up using the Valor Knight system. There'll be thrills, chills, cheesy jokes, all within a 45-minute time frame because it's lunchtime beat 'em ups. Let's see. On Friday, 11:30 Mountain, I am talking to Roll20 and Drive Through RPG about their new joint venture. So if you're into RPGs, that's big news. And Kickstarter, boy, I need to get a tiny URL for that. Kickstarter.com/projects/pew pew bounty hunters /blaster bolts. All right. So I had this crazy idea. I have a short attention span, and I just think too many writers these days, well, they write too long. I miss the elegant art of crafting a short story and not thinking about how do I turn this into a trilogy. So I ran this zine for the last 6 months called Blaster Bolts, which combined like a synthesis of peanut butter and chocolate, if you will, short science fiction and RPG content from the White Star science fiction system, which is based on the old D&D game. And Kickstarter. Oh boy, this is a long pitch. We'll be funding the anthology of the fiction and the omnibus of the RPG stuff. Sometime in the next week, we are launching. So, wow, whole lot of selling. Sorry about that.
All righty. And Charles, when can we look forward to Outer Planet Panic? When will the Kickstarter launch?
I'm hoping 4 to 6 months. I just want to build up a much stronger email list and develop a landing page as well as a funnel page, which I'm learning how to do. But within this year or early next year. And I'm just, again, very grateful to you and everyone that I'm allowed to talk about Outer Planet Panic, where you work together to stab each other in the back.
Righty. Well, please let us know when you launch. We'll give you a boost on the Go Show page.
Yeah, we'll have you back on the BAMF podcast to talk about that too.
Yeah,
that would be so delightful. And again, you're an amazing set of human beings. The world is better with all of you in it.
Oh, thank you. And speaking of fabulous human beings, that takes us to Sean. Sean, you get to take us home.
Well, and as I think we've all paid our dues because with the checks being in the mail.
Well, thank you, gentlemen, for joining us, and thank you all for tuning in. We will be back. Well, at the very latest, we're going to be back on August the 29th with our second Superbacker podcast. We're talking to our other Superbackers, trying to work out scheduling, so there may be an intervening podcast. But if you go to Facebook and follow us at the Go Show page, you will be the first to know when additional podcasts are scheduled. And thank you all for tuning in. Thank you all for supporting wonderful creators like these, and have a great night. And for now, the Go Show is closed.